Hi, welcome to the Second Rainbow Coalition Reading Group. We are reading Ojibwa Warrior, Dennis Banks, and the Rise of the American Indian Movement. We'll be doing chapter 23 today. We will begin first with the Second Rainbow Coalition Statement of Unity. Comrade Gabby?
Thank you, Sister Zen. I'll begin reading the Statement of Unity preface. The U.S. was founded as a colonial settler state based upon white supremacy and slavery, stealing the lands of the indigenous nations, breaking every treaty made with them, and confining them to quote-unquote reservations, concentration camps. As the country became more powerful, the eagle sunk its claws into other nations, making war on Mexico and grabbing its northern territory, invading Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Philippines, and either annexing them outright or making them colonies or neo-colonies. And in the 20th century, it became the major imperialist power in the world, exploiting both the people within its boundaries and those in every other country, bullying them with military interventions, and robbing them of their right to self-determination. As Huey P. Newton stated, we have two enemies to fight, racism and capitalism. Between the two, capitalism is primary. Racism is a byproduct of capitalism. The working people of the world, of every ethnicity or nationality, face a common enemy that is destroying life on Earth. Our enemy is a small ruling class of property owners controlling most of the world's wealth and resources. We must have our basic needs met to live a good and meaningful life. Food, shelter, healthcare, education, freedom from the oppression of the state, and peace with other nations. To obtain these essential things for life, we must have the power to use. We must have the power to see to it that the abundance that is available is shared equitably. Statement of Unity for the Second Rainbow Coalition. The legacy of the First Rainbow Coalition dates back to its founding on April 4th, 1969, by the original Black Panther Party, original Young Lords, and Young Patriots organization. A number of other organizations joined this coalition not too long afterwards, such as the American Indian Movement, which we are reading about today, Brown Berets, Rising Up Angry, the Red Guards, and others. Since the founding of the United States, the masses had developed a number of popular movements that came together to fight back against this capitalist imperialist system in various ways around particular demands. Nevertheless, none had established a movement quite like the first Rainbow Coalition. This historic movement was the first of its kind and established a model of class struggle like no other. Its charismatic leader, Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois chapter of the original Black Panther Party, stated that at the end of the day, we were not engaged in a race struggle. He said that it's a class struggle, god damn it. By uniting with the various oppressed ethnicities and masses, they were able to bridge the gap between the various ethnic communities that white supremacy had long sought to keep divided. This class solidarity equipped them with the material basis and class consciousness to see their common class condition, therefore the necessity to form a united front against their common class oppressor, the capitalist imperialist ruling class. The ruling class viewed this as the greatest threat to their class rule and subsequently used the entire repressive forces of the state, police, courts, jails, prisons, and intelligence agencies, etc., in order to crush this emerging revolutionary socialist movement. We refounded the Rainbow Coalition on May 14th, 2021, with the intent of upholding the legacy of the original Rainbow Coalition. We believe that this historic example is the model for the United Front that will best serve our class liberation. By upholding the 10-point program of the original Young Lords, Young Patriots organization, and all other original Rainbow Coalition members, we've established our pragmatic unity. The 6 disciplinary rules that we uphold ties all organizations in our coalition to a common professional discipline. History has bestowed upon our generation a common class mission to fulfill. The representatives of the capitalist imperialist ruling class, represented by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, cannot liberate us. It is their class intention and class interest to uphold our common class oppression. Therefore, it is only we, the oppressed masses of all ethnicities and nationalities, who must build the necessary class solidarity, class consciousness, organizational structures, and a united front that will ultimately liberate ourselves. This is this is what the Second Rainbow Coalition is committed to. This is the historic mission we intend to fulfill. Dare to struggle, dare to win. All members of the coalition, New African Black Panther Party, White Panther Party, Green Party of New Jersey, Poor People's Army, La Masa Nacional de Brown Berets, Nassau, North Alabama School for Organizers, New Era Young Lords, Guardian Rebellion, and American Indian Movement's NE Woodland Chapter. The 6 disciplinary rules. Number 1, members will conduct themselves in a manner that will bring credit to the coalition and will treat others with respect and politeness. Number 2, members will be sober when on Rainbow Coalition business and will not engage in any criminal activity while a member. Number 3, no member will engage in violence except in the extremity of self-defense. Number 4, members will not gossip nor be divisive to the unity of the Second Rainbow Coalition. Number 5, members will not act as informers nor work against the purpose of the Second Rainbow Coalition. And number 6, nobody is authorized to speak for the Second Rainbow Coalition unless authorized to do so. And that is the statement of unity.
Okay, I'm gonna screen share the book now. Can y'all see that okay?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay. Chapter 23, Onondaga. Our old men have frequently taken a single arrow and said, "Children, see how easily it is broken." Then they have tied together several arrows with a single cord, and our strongest man cannot break them. This is what the Six Nations means. Divided, you may be destroyed by a single man. United, you are a match for the whole world. Canasatego, 1775. It was snowing really hard the next morning in the Onondaga Hills. Alice said, "Dennis, maybe you shouldn't go to New York. It might turn out badly for you there. Nothing is going to be done over a weekend anyway." Saturday passed and Sunday did too. Alice was concerned for me, fretting about the situation I was in. She said, "Maybe you should fight from here against your extradition." On Monday morning, I was gathering up my stuff, ready to go to New York City, but Alice had already invited the Tadadaho, head chief of all the Six Nations, to come to her house to talk with me. The Tadadaho is a respected leader of the Onondaga and likewise of the Great Council Fire of the whole Iroquois Federation, which is situated on the Onondaga Reservation. At that time, Leon Shenandoah was the Tadadaho. He was a great man who died shortly before I began writing my story. His death was mourned not only by his own tribe, but by Indian people all across the country. Alice asked him, why couldn't Dennis be given sanctuary in the Longhouse? The Tadadaho looked at Alice for what seemed to me a long time. Then the two of them spoke to each other in the Onondaga language. Leon lit his pipe, nodded, and said, Finally, he turned to me, speaking in English. "Well, Dennis, even though I am the head of the chief of all the I am the head chief of all Six Nations, I just can't give you sanctuary all by myself. There is a certain process that we have to follow. You have to ask sanctuary from the whole membership of the Longhouse. It has to come from the people, and it first has to go to the clan mothers. From them, it goes to the chiefs of the Onondaga Nation. Then they give it to the Grand Council of the Six Nations Federation. But I will gladly begin that process." I thanked him. Later, I called Bill Kunstler in New York City. "Bill, what do you think of my staying at Onondaga and fighting extradition from here?" He immediately concurred. "Brilliant, Dennis. The best idea yet." I asked Alice, "May Kamuk and I stay here a while?" Alice smiled. "Yes, of course." Meanwhile, Kamuk was still at our former house in Dixon. I had someone call her saying, "The package has arrived. Thanks for the Christmas present." That was our code, meaning that I was safe and in good hands. Later on, I managed to get word to her about where I was staying. On January 2nd, 1984, at 9 o'clock in the morning, Duke Maishan was sworn in as California's new governor. He lost no time. At 10 o'clock that same morning, our house in Dixon was surrounded by police. They entered and searched the entire place looking for me. A few moments later, Kamuk and the kids came back from shopping. The police went after her with vengeance. "Where's your husband?" She told them, "I don't know where he's at. Maybe he'll call." They couldn't get anything more out of her. At Onondaga, I went from house to house soliciting support from the chiefs. They took me to the Longhouse to debate the matter. The Longhouse is the heart and soul of the Iroquois, and this particular one is also where the Grand Council of all 6 nations is held. The building itself is about 100 feet long and 60 feet wide, a single-story structure with high ceilings of beautiful cedar logs. It is divided into 2 parts, the Mud House and the Longhouse, the so-called 2 houses of government. The entrance is at the exact center of the building. All the chiefs have a designated spot to sit on the left side, while the clan mothers occupy the right side near the entrance. The young children are given their place there too. The Tarodaho sits in the back of the stove where the sacred fire is kept burning. Everything is done in a ceremonial manner. In the evening, when the sun goes down and no more business can be conducted, the benches are dragged to the center of the Longhouse. There are usually 2 or 3 of them, and the singers straddle them, pounding on them with their turtle shell rattles while they sing. Sometimes the singers sit opposite one another across the aisle of benches, shaking their rattles. There are always ceremonies going on in the Longhouse. Winter ceremonies, spring rituals, summer rites, green corn ceremonies, ceremonies for the young ones. The chiefs took me into the Longhouse and had me sit in the center. They debated my case back and forth, speaking in their own language. From time to time, someone would explain to me in English what was going on. Finally, I was told, "We want to help. We are going to put it to the clan mothers. We don't know how long it will take, but we will call them together. Tobacco will be burned each day as medicine. That is how we do these things." My case went to the clan mothers, who discussed who discussed it thoroughly, going over the details again and again. The chiefs had warned me to stay away from the media. They wanted no reporters coming to Onondaga. I strictly obeyed them in this matter, but the press somehow found out and hung around the border of the reservation. One photographer snapped a photo of me from far away with an extra long telephoto lens. Soon after, there were headlines on the front pages of various newspapers. Dennis Banks at Onondaga. The cat was out of the bag. As a result, the chiefs got a lot of pressure from the outside. The FBI, sheriffs, and local police made threatening noises. Fortunately, the FBI could do nothing as the reservation was under state jurisdiction and Cuomo had declared that he would respect the sovereignty of the Onondaga Nation. Of course, an extradition warrant from South Dakota arrived at Albany, New York, but the state of New York never acted on it. All this meant I was safe as long as I stayed on the reservation. On January 10th, Kamuk and the children came to join me. My family was together again. In late March, the clan mothers made the decision to grant me sanctuary. Then they brought the matter before the chiefs, who, after a full day's session, joined in providing a safe haven for me and my family. The chiefs of all the 6 nations were invited to come to Nedrow to support the Onondaga position. So the heads of the Grand Council of the Iroquois League came together. They met for 2 days in the Longhouse to talk about my case. I was allowed to sit in as an observer, though I could not understand what was said because most of the speeches were made in the Iroquois language. Finally, the chiefs made their pronouncement one by one. Yes, sanctuary is granted. The Tarodaho asked me to stand up. He said, "The chiefs have given their full support for you and your family to stay on 6 nation land. You are now safe under the wings of the Onondaga Nation." I wanted to jump up and shout for joy, but in respect for the solemnity of the Longhouse atmosphere, I restrained myself, remaining quiet and reserved. I looked over to Kamuk and we both had tears in our eyes. Finally, the Tadadaho said, "We are going to close the business with a dance tonight." They brought out the turtle shell rattles and began to dance and sing. Sorry, guys. I need more caffeine.
If you ever get well, I was gonna say if you ever get too tired, I can always take up reading.
Okay, I'll let you know if I need a break.
Gotcha.
I still got the yawns. All at once, the Longhouse was filled with the sounds of music and the laughter of children. They asked Kamuk and me to stand with our own children as the clan mothers came, clan by clan, to greet us and shake our hands. All of the chiefs did the same. Chief Oren Lyons had the last word as he announced, "Dennis Banks and his family now sit under the long leaves of the great tree of peace planted at Onondaga long before the white people came to our shores." Kamuk and I were to live in Nedrow for the next 18 months. At first, we stayed with Alice Papineau, but her house was already crowded with members of her own family. I did not want to impose upon her hospitality any longer than necessary. We were happy and thankful when the tribe made available to us a large log cabin on a hill. Kamuk and I were so happy to be safe again that we gladly made the repairs the old cabin needed. One day when we were redoing a wall, we discovered old newspapers dating back to 1914 that had been used as wallpaper. When we built a new wall, I placed a whole contemporary newspaper wrapped in plastic inside the wall, adding a note, "To the occupants who open this up in the future, Dennis Banks and his wife Kamuk lived in this house in 1984 and put up these new walls." The note went on to explain why we were in Onondaga at the time. Many years from now, unless the cabin burns down or collapses, perhaps someone will again repair the wall and come across my little historic item. The reservation was small, consisting of about 7,300 acres. Only some 3,500 people lived on it at that time. It was up to me to keep busy and to find things to do. To keep in shape, I would run every morning, weather permitting. During January, when I started, it was still very cold with the roads iced over. Blizzards and snowstorms blew through frequently. In such cases, I would wait until afternoon to run when it was a few degrees warmer, or I would wait until the storm blew over. By February, the weather was slightly warmer. A couple of 7 or 8-year-old boys started running with me then. They had watched me for some time and decided that running was fun. Soon there were 7 kids jogging along with me, so we started a running club. I told them they had to run all the way to the dam about a mile away and run back to where we started from. Some of the younger kids could not do that, so we started running from one telephone pole to the next, then walking to the one after, running to one, walking to the next. That way the youngsters were all able to keep up with the group. That was the way I trained them. By March, I had 15 kids running down the road. We generally met at Alice Papineau's. We did our warm-ups and stretching exercises there. More and more parents brought their children to join us. They kept coming, and we ended up with about 40 kids participating. From among them, we formed a pretty good cross-country team. I had jackets made for 25 of them with a logo that said, "Cross Country Eagles, Onondaga Nation." From this group, I began to train a special team made up of 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, also called the Eagles. We organized a run for them from New York City to Los Angeles to participate in the Jim Thorpe Games that were named after one of the greatest athletes of our century. Goodness. And Jim Thorpe was an American Indian of Sauk and Fox descent. In the 1912 Olympic Games in Stockholm, Sweden, Thorpe won the decathlon and pentathlon, but was deprived of his gold medals because he had already turned to professional baseball in 1911. In 1982, Jim Thorpe's family was finally given the gold medals from the 1912 Olympic Games, something that thousands of American Indians had urged the Olympic Committee to do for years. Excuse me. The Eagles were a great success in the Jim Thorpe Games and were written about in the newspapers. Gabby, would you like to read for a few minutes?
Sure. Where do we leave off again?
as Kamuk and I began to settle with our new
Gotcha.
community.
Gotcha. Thank you. As
You're
Kamuk and I began to settle in with our new community, I found I wanted to learn as much as of the Onondaga way of life as I could, even a little of their language. I was interested in all the aspects of their traditional way of life. One day, I discovered three good-sized mud turtles belly up. An Onondaga friend showed me how to cut them open, scoop all the meat out of out out for soup. I've never had turtle before. I heard they're pretty good. And make the shells into large turtle rattles. I learned how to cook Onondaga style and began to eat strange foods, which at first seemed repugnant to me. For example, in 1984, 1984 was the year of the locusts. Oh wow! After 17 years of living as grubs and larvae, the locusts emerged from deep in the earth. Alice Papinu
Happening.
Papanaw told me we've got to get up early in the morning to gather them because later, after they have eaten their fill of leaves, they are no good for our eating. They are too mushy and spoiled. But if we get them early, they are empty and good to eat. We catch them and we get them early. They are empty and we catch them and fry them up. If you eat locusts, it is said that you will have a 17 years of good health and happiness. Want to try some? Hell, I would love to try some. I've never had any locusts before. Would love to try some. Actually, they sound pretty good. I was game for it, and so was little Chubbs, who was then about 4 years old. She wanted to see what they tasted like, but Kamuk and our older girls refused. So Chubbs and I got paper bags and brushed the locusts right off the trees. Each of us catching 100 or more. All of these creatures were jumping around in our bags when we brought them into Alice, who was heating some butter in a big frying pan. She said, "Just open the bags and shake them out into the skillets." We did, and she slammed the lid on tight. Um, we did, and she slammed the lid on tight. There was a crackling noise like corn being popped. After stirring it up, Alice brought it to the table and filled our plates with stir-fried locusts. Chubbs and I were crunching away while the others watched us. The taste sorry, I lost myself for a second. There's a crackling. Right.
Right here.
The taste was quite good. Tanisha said, "Ooh, Daddy, no, eating insects is gross." You know, eating insects is gross. Chubbs just smiled and said, "Yummy." That's me. That's lucky me. Since then, almost another 17 years have passed, and we have lived, as they say, a healthy life. That's good. Guess you're right. Chubbs and I have shared a wonderful father-daughter relationship. She liked to pal around in those years with her daddy. I remember that at Onondaga, it would get so cold at night, sometimes below zero. Damn. Chubbs would need to use the outhouse and would ask me to walk her out there. So we would venture out under the stars and sit in the old two-seater overlooking the lights of Syracuse. Am I pronouncing that right? Syracuse. Syracuse. It would be cold as blazes, and she would chat away with me about little things, and we sat out there. She liked to go to the Longhouse, where she learned to dance at an early age. She is still my queen. Of course, I love Tosh and Ethiopia as much as Chubbs. In 1984, a fourth baby joined our family. God damn, 4 babies? Wow. In 1985, a fourth baby joined our family. This time, Kamuk gave birth to a little boy. Oh wow, 3 girls and 1 boy. He was born in Syracuse, New York, 5 years after Chubbs was born. He was later given a special name by Grandma Jumping Bull at a big naming ceremony. Oh boy,
Chanupa
Chanupa
washed.
Chanupa washed, right?
Probably Washti, but just
Uh,
give me a guess here. Chanupa Washti.
Yeah, Shanupawachti, meaning good sacred pipe. I am very proud of all our children and of Kamuk, who was a deeply devoted mother and partner. We did not know then how long we were to stay at Onondaga, so we put Tashina in school there. She was so excited, telling Ethiopia, "Guess what? I'm going to school." If only I was that excited about going to school. we got her a little lunchbox and a shoulder bag to keep her schoolwork in. We even made her a nameplate that read, "Hello, my name is Tashina." On the morning I was to take Tosh to her first day of school, we held a little ceremony and I burned some sage for her. I explained to her, "This is your first day. I'm going to leave you for a few hours and won't see you until I pick you up this afternoon." She asked, "But Daddy, how long is that going to be?" I told her 5 or 6 hours. I drove the van to school and parked it in front of the playground. As we got out, I noticed tears welling up in Tasha's eyes. I took her hand and we went inside to meet her new teacher. I said, "So long, Tosh. I'll see you after a while." "No, Daddy, I don't want you to leave me." I said, "All right, Tosh, we'll go to school another time." I told the teacher, "When Tosh feels better, I'll bring her back." We went to a little cafe where I ordered some coffee and an orange juice for Tosh. After a time, she looked up at me and said, "Well, I'm ready. You can take me to school now." That night, she came home all smiles and told us the names of the kids she had met. Even the bedtime, she would. Even at bedtime, she was telling Ethiopia about all the nice new friends she had met at school. Later, when hunting season began at Onondaga, I told Kamuk that I told Kamuk that I was going to go hunting the following Saturday. Tosh, who was about 9 at the time, heard me and asked, "Daddy, can I go with you?" I said, "Sure, we'll be out hunting deer." At school, she told all of her friends that she was going hunting with her dad. She was so excited, just counting the days. On Friday night, I told Tosh, "Tomorrow we'll get up early before the sun comes up to go hunting." Early the next morning, Kamuk fixed us a big breakfast with hot oatmeal. She packed lunch for us with a thermos bottle of hot coffee, and off we went. A friend of mine had lent me his 3060. No, I'm 3006. I drove up to the top of a hill where I knew deer were abundant. Parked the car and we started up the hill with Tosh carrying the lunch bucket. I told her, "We've got to be very quiet. We can't talk because that would spook the deer. We only whisper." Suddenly I saw 2 deer through the woods. I said, "Stop. Put your lunch put your lunch pile down. Just watch." I loaded up the rifle and Tosh asked, "Dad, what are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" "I'm going to shoot the deer." At at that, she started crying loudly, "No, no, Dad, you can't do that." And she went on sobbing, "I don't want you to shoot the deer." I said, "You were looking forward to going hunting with me. What did you think hunting was about if not for getting meat for food?" She cried, "You didn't say anything about killing the deer." Of course, the deer had ran when they heard Tosh crying. So 2 deer were saved that day because of one little girl. To her, hunting meant that we were just going to watch our four-legged relatives. I said, "Okay, okay, I won't shoot any deer. We're just going to have a nice walk today and watch them." Then she stopped crying. When we came home, Tosh ran happily inside and said, "Mom, we hunted 2 deers, and you know what? Daddy wanted to shoot them, but I wouldn't let him." Oh, that's cute. Um, I could not
Well, I
step
can
one.
read another section.
Gotcha.
I could not step 1 foot off the reservation for fear of being arrested, but friends arrived all the time to visit me. Russ and Ted Means, Bill Wapapa, Clyde Bellacourt, and others. The whole AIM leadership came to see me. Over time, people came from all over the world to show support for the Onondaga Nation and me. Above all, my time at Onondaga was a time of learning. Here among the Iroquois, I saw Indian ideas of wisdom and brotherhood put into practice. Here, the concerns of the least fire found their way to the great council fire, where the concerns of the humblest became the concerns of the greatest chiefs. Here, public concerns were solved in a solemn, age-old manner. In the Longhouse, all decisions had to be unanimous. Discussions continued until every person was persuaded and satisfied to give his assent, or until all arguments were exhausted and a plan was abandoned. Then in the evening, when the concerns of the day were behind us, it was time to offer thanks to the Creator with tobacco for the morning sunrise and to enjoy our families together. What I learned from my Onondaga friends was that you must always leave room for debate, whether it is a matter of high political confrontation or a family dilemma. The knowledge has helped me in my own life every day since then. I will always remember the help and friendship of the Onondaga people, of their open homes and hearts. But in September 1984, my enforced stay on the Onondaga reservation came to an end. Oh, that's the end of that chapter. Okay.
That chapter was actually pretty short. If we wanted to, we could probably finish the last one if we wanted, but it's already an hour long.
No, I'll save that for tomorrow in case that one's longer. And that way we stay on schedule.
But that was nice. That was a nice little story, honestly. It was very sweet.
Right. I'm curious, Richard or Joe or Kimberly, do you guys have any commentary on this chapter?
Not really. No,
I can read if you want to put it back up there. I don't want my camera on because my hair is all a mess, but
But that was the end of the chapter
No,
for
no,
today.
yeah.
oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, it's all good.
I've been multitasking all morning or all week, and it's finally caught up to me. Like my activism mind, or my mind as an activist, is completely tired.
I feel you on that.
And that chapter that we just went through, it hasn't been as exciting as the other chapters that we've read. So it kind of, I don't really have too much to say on it.
Well, I have something to say on it, if that's okay. I was gonna say that it's things like these that kind of have to keep us reminded that as revolutionaries, while we do have to engage in boots on the ground and engage in organizing and class agitation and building solidarity within our masses, at the end of the day, we're still human beings. We still need breaks. We still need time off with those who love. And like I've said a couple of times before, being a revolutionary and having that class solidarity with your comrades doesn't just give you a group of revolutionaries to be around with. It gives you a group of friends to be around with. People that love you, that care about you, that want to see you do your best, who are critical about you because they know you can do better. People that you can hang out with, to have fun with, and it's just I think as we transition to the 21st century, we are just realizing how important and essential mental health really is, because that's something that has been lacking in all the past communist movements that have come before us, even the original Black Panthers, so we really need to put an emphasis on mental health and, just that we are human beings. And at the end of the day, socialism and revolution is all about bringing about a society where we are treated as human beings and not as cogs in a machine, and yeah.
Right. that's well said and stuff like that. And this is what I've been talking about and recently. I've always talked about this, but finding that balance, even us as revolutionary soldiers and soldierettes, um, we have to find the balance in life for ourselves, our family, of course, our jobs, and then we get involved in so many things that one of the things that someone told me, they said, well, why don't you just pick one or two topics to fight on, and you'll be more effective because you can concentrate on those one or two topics to fight on. When my mind doesn't let me do that, my mind wants to fight everything,
Same.
and it gets overwhelming. So like, usually on Sundays, and I'm glad that I made it today. I was like, oh man, I was like kind of being lazy, I guess, but I'm glad that I came on today because it's always uplifting. It's always powerful to associate with other like-minded individuals and giving one another strength when sometimes we get tired. That's a basic reality of being in the struggle.
Yep.
Carrying the struggle gets tiresome. But
Hmm.
let us keep on fighting. All power to the people.
All power to the
All
people.
power.
I was just going to say, I was talking to someone else about this, but how cool would it be? This would be amazing if this ever happened. Obviously, we're in the preliminary stage, so there are a lot of things we have to do first. But it would be really amazing if UPM and the Second Rainbow Coalition had like a therapist option where like we had therapists and where we had like therapists or therapy for our fellow comrades and our fellow revolutionary soldiers. That would be pretty cool. I think
That's
so, at
actually
least.
something you can talk about with Minister Rob Strong out in California. He is a psychologist, if I remember right. And that's something that he is working on as the Minister of Health to be able to, have that be one of those facets that's addressed as we rebuild like what the original Panthers had with having, free healthcare access. That's definitely something that's on the table. It's really important, this makes me think of the interview that we did with Comrade Aaron Dixon from the original Black Panther Party out
All
in
right, yeah.
California.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, and when we asked him what's, the greatest piece of advice you could give us, and he was like, take care of your mental health. He said he is, glad to see that those of us of younger generations are more aware of our need for addressing our mental health and everything than what a lot of people had been back then, because they burned themselves out quite a bit working 24/7 and not taking a break. So that's important that this chapter highlighted that need for some downtime and just reconnection with family and with just being with nature, especially being with the community, because after all the shit that Dennis and Kamuk had gone through with being in jail, with fighting all these various cases, with having been infiltrated with COINTELPRO bullshit, like they needed a fucking break.
Yep.
I
100%.
woke up telling myself that I was like, I wish I was somewhere fishing or taking a walk up in the forest and like just on a path where you don't hear nobody. There's no cell phone connection. There's no nothing. And I think we have to do that for ourselves to regain that natural energy. And I usually use nature to rebuild. But like I said, we have to divvy up our time. It's a balance, and in that speaking, let us not forget, if we are not on our A game, well, then what are we able to portray to the rest of the people as leaders,
Exactly.
as revolutionary leaders, or as revolutionary just soldiers? I wouldn't even go into leadership, but as revolutionary soldiers. If we are not on our A game, then what are we really promoting? So
Mm-hmm.
definitely balance life. That has a lot to do with it. One of the things that touched me too in this reading when he was with his daughter Chubbs, and they were, I think, in, was it Allegheny or Albany, New York or something?
On Onondaga, I believe.
Um, I believe it was somewhere in New York when it was below zero and stuff, and his daughter had to go to the outhouse, and he would walk with her, and and you said, "Oh, that's daughter number 4," and I was like, I don't know, Comrade Gabby, but I got 7 daughters.
Damn. God fucking damn, you have 7 daughters? I
Yeah,
could never, bro.
I
I
have
could
7.
never.
So even like when we're talking about, doing stuff, as an activist or as a protester or as a just in general, when it comes to movements, but sometimes we get those phone calls from our family like, "Hey, daughter number 3 or daughter is in jail. Daughter number 5 crashed her car this weekend." I was like, "Oh man," like, I mean, so as a father, stuff like that weighs on us too, because of
Mm-hmm.
course we always want the best for our kids, but
Mm-hmm.
we've only gave them the tools to walk through life and to do their best. But in the end, it's as individuals, it's all up to us as individuals what we want to do with our lives.
Yep.
And that kind of weighs on a parent also.
You
And
know,
and,
I'm
and,
sorry.
and I know then what you were saying with Rob Rich, I believe.
Yeah.
Rob Strong.
Rob
Rob Rich is
Strong,
our
Yeah.
Minister of
exactly. Rob Strong.
Justice. Yeah, we've got a whole council of Robs. in the
Yeah,
ministry.
But there's only
I'm
one
really,
true Rob.
I'm really adamant about that, I'm glad you brought that out, Comrade Gabby, because mental health issues um, is kind of the root problem to a lot of people that have drug issues or
100%.
unhoused issues, and a lot of the even within police brutality, when a lot of even the police don't even know how to come across, aren't well trained enough to deal with people with mental health issues. So it's real important to keep in context and keep up and whatever, however we can do it or whatever we do to just uplift one another, even if it's just these um, study groups or just in simple phone calls. Let us keep on continuing to strive to push one another up, keep one another afloat, and all I can say is just hang in there. It's a dog
Indeed.
eat dog world, and that's all.
100%. 100%. Beautifully said, Comrade Joe. Beautifully said. And everything that you were saying was spot on. And especially, and I just wanted to add on to what you said, especially when it comes to people who have mental health issues and people who are neurodivergent and so on and so forth. Oftentimes whenever you fucking go on the news, you always hear some antagonistic shit about neurodivergent people. This guy with clear mental issues is harassing these people, yelling on the street, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you know, you know how we perceive crime within our society is twisted and molded in order in order to make us believe the ideology and the narratives that the bourgeois want us to believe. Because whenever we see crime on the news, whenever we see stuff like that, we're like, this guy with mental health issues is harassing people on the road and he's screaming and so on and so forth. Oftentimes we see, oh no, he's the problem. That person's the problem. But it's but instead of seeing the individual as a problem, we should be seeing what led to them becoming that way. What exactly leads people and what exactly causes people to become impoverished, and for people with mental disorders and who are neurodivergent to not get that help that they need, that makes them do stuff like that. The problem isn't the individual. The problem is the system and the socioeconomic system that we live in that produces impoverishment, that causes poverty, and that causes people who are neurodivergent to not get the help that they need. Because in this socioeconomic system, the bourgeois don't give a shit about neurodivergent people. They don't give a fuck about physically disabled people, you know? So
Well,
like
under capitalism, mental health care access itself is treated as a fucking commodity
yep,
instead
everything is.
of as a human fucking right.
Exactly.
And on top of it being a system that causes mental health damage, look at how many people right now are dealing with extreme levels of anxiety, of
Depression.
the PTSD, yes, depression, all kinds of things. And a lot of it comes down to their position in life and the shit that they've had to go through that fucking
Abuse.
traumatized them,
Exactly.
because we live in a capitalist fucking system. So on top of the system causing an exponentially fucking greater amount of mental health issues than what we would have if we were not under capitalism, it then is like, well, unless you can afford to pay out the ass to see a therapist, fuck you. Good luck.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Literally.
I think that
Yeah.
kind
It's-
of started. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say exactly what sister Zen said. We live in a socioeconomic system that privatizes and commodifies mental health as if it's a privilege and not a fucking bare necessity. And obviously, in order for them to fucking maximize profit, they make it increasingly harder and harder to pay off. And the said medications and the said treatments that they give are not actually the best that they could have. They're only made to deal. They're only made to deal with the problem on the short term, not the long term. So that way, when the problem comes up again, you're forced to go to them regularly. And
Right.
yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yeah.
But Comrade Joe, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I recall, when I was younger in the 80s, I believe it was President Reagan at the time, when he
Ew.
started taking funding away from medical treatment and closing down a lot of facilities and closing down the money that was allocated to those that did suffer from mental issues to like 20, 30 years later. Now we see a full-blown effect of it on the streets, whether it's unhoused and or now we have the whole opioid crisis, that with especially fentanyl. You see that in the streets, and it's so prevalent, like in specific places. Of course, I travel a lot. I don't see it everywhere, but in some places it's very, very bad.
Right.
And they don't have the adequate facilities. They don't have the adequate treatment, and then you go down to, like you say, well, let's give them a secret. Let's give them a happy pill for this to turn left, and let's give them another happy pill to turn right, and one to
Right.
go up and one to go down. Well, you know what? Those happy pills are just kind of like putting lipstick on a pig, just to
Yeah.
to mask it. It's almost like seeing through rose-colored glasses. Oh, everything looks
Mhm.
better right now, but
Yeah.
when you're talking about it, define the root problem of it. And the root problem of a lot of the issues that are taking place is mental issue, whether
Right.
it's anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic
PTSD.
stress syndrome, which so many of us, specifically in the bigger inner cities, have had to go to deal with the problems that not people all throughout the nation see. Not to take away what happens in what are small communities, but you're just more exposed to it in the bigger cities, and it does take a toll on one's psyche. But like I said, let's stay strong. That's all.
Right.
Beautifully said.
Crime in general is the result of America's inadequacy to deal with mental illness. I believe that our whole system, basically, and then there's the illusion of individualism, that nothing is connected.
Exactly.
Even historically, they disconnect you from the history of what they did, so that you believe that there's no dialectic, there's no
Connection.
cause exactly to this effect. So it's like it's an interweb of just I fuck you over, and whatever you do because of me fucking you over, just deal with it on your own. So yeah, and I also think it's crazy. I've not heard most of these chapters, but it sounds to me more like the author is highlighting how the world would be without the issues.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like that peaceful serenity of would be our day. You know, just them with their father, just them with their parent, and going hunting and enjoying the simplicity without the constant struggle. But yeah, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I have nothing else.
That's a good that's a good that's a good analysis, comrade Rich. And yeah, I agree. You know, like do you know how amazing it would be to live in a society that actively helps you be the best you can be? You know how amazing that would be? You know how amazing it would be to live in a world where you are accepted for being you and you're just happy to be you, and you are given the resources and the tools to accommodate to your specific needs to be the best you can be, and the best decent human being you can be. Like that just sounds beautiful. Like just imagine a society where everyone is given that chance, where
It's
everyone
not
is
profitable.
given.
It's
Yeah,
not
but it's not
profitable.
profitable.
They
It's not
can't give you the
profitable.
happy pills like Comrade Joe said. It's not.
Yep.
Each issue it leads to a new version of commodification. So all of the commodification leads to more commodification. It's all exponential profitability. They do not give a fuck about the individual, even though they will put it on you as the individual. And you will just go down the road of coercion into the next form of commodification, whether from the streets to the prison where they're paid 120,000 a year for keeping you in a cell that is paid for by the taxpayer. Like it's just a constant. It's a game. It's crazy when you really think about it. But
it's a rat game.
Yeah.
It's more like a racket.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
it's a racket.
business, whether it be the
Exactly.
pharmaceutical or whether it be the prison industries. It's all a racket, and it's based on making money, and usually they target the poor, the weak, those of color, to fall into those systematic oppressions of just keeping us down. So we definitely have to stay strong with thinking that, and this is what you said earlier. I think that's what it's important for one another to lift each other up, because we are facing a doggy dog world, like I mentioned earlier. But if we don't have no inner support, you might not sometimes find it from your family or your community, but sometimes you find it, across the nation. And let us continue keeping one another up, and to face these struggles, to stay strong, to uplift one another, like on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis at least, because sometimes if we lose touch with those that are in facing similar struggles or are passionate about taking on specific struggles, but we have to keep one another lifted. We have to inspire one another, because we don't really get that support. And you can go to 10 therapists, but it doesn't mean that they went through the same things you went through. So they don't even understand what you're going through. So like, I was talking to yourself. What was I going to say? Oh, and then as far as the medical thing, it was like the doctor gave the man 6 months to live. He couldn't pay his bills, so he went ahead and gave him another 6 months to live. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's all a business. It's all a business. That's all.
Well, it's fucking crazy because, like, okay, there's certain things, like if you actually have a chemical imbalance in your brain, then those happy pills serve a purpose to help your brain produce the normal levels of neurotransmitters that it needs to function properly. But there's a huge problem when in the industry right now, because that's what it's become instead of healthcare, it is health business. It's a fucking industry that they're making so much money hand over fist with big pharma that without even doing the blood test to see what your levels of certain neurotransmitters are, they're going ahead and prescribing these pills across the board to anybody who's dealing with anxiety or whatever, you know, and it's overkill because if you don't actually have a chemical imbalance in your neurotransmitters, those drugs are not going to help you. You need therapy sessions with somebody who, like Comrade Joe said, actually understands where you're coming from. Which is a whole nother issue to dive into when it comes to this, because I know a lot of people who have had to bounce from one therapist to another because the therapist that they were going to wasn't any good, didn't want to listen, or, you know, was themselves ingrained with systemic racism, and the way that they treated certain comrades was pretty fucked up. You know, there's been a few people I know who have specifically had to seek out finding a therapist who is even of the same ethnicity as them, just to be able to have someone willing to listen and understand the shit they dealt with in life, living in this fucked system. Because, you know, there's still some huge problems when it comes to psychiatry and whatnot, where if you are dealing with, you know, for example, a white therapist who is racist, they're likely to tell a black patient, you know, things like, you know, oh, well, why can't you handle that? Aren't you strong enough, etc. Because they still have that fucked idea that black people don't experience pain the same way that white people do. And it's fucking ignorant. It's really fucking ignorant. And I mean, we see that pervasive through the whole fucking health business system, of not just in psychiatry, but also in like pain management and things like that. And as somebody who's dealt with spinal cord damage, I can tell you that if you're not getting proper pain management, it's going to traumatize you mentally and emotionally too. So there's a lot of problems here that, rather than actually addressing properly what somebody is going through and needs help with certain issues, they're like, here's a pill for that, here's a pill for that, here's a pill for that, whether you need that pill or not, because they're getting kickbacks from the fucking pharmaceutical industry. And in so many cases, a lot of the things that we are dealing with would be better addressed with, like what Dennis did here, of go take some time away from all the bullshit, go stay in nature, go, you know, reconnect with the people, go reconnect with nature, and give yourself a fucking break. And sadly, we don't all have that option to be able to do so, because we're stuck just trying to fucking survive in capitalism, where we don't get that break. We don't get mental health days to take off from work unless you're really fucking lucky and, you know, your employer actually covers mental health days. But
which
more
most
often
don't.
than not, they'll tell you, shut up, take this pill, go back to work. Your problems are all in your head, fuck off. And it's really fucked.
That's literally what my dad tells me. That's what my parents tell me. Oh, it's just in your head. You can manage it. You can control it. It's that fucking. It's that subconscious ableist sentiment that all of these issues, that all of these things that we have to go to, that they're all just extra. That they're all just things in our head that we cannot control. In fact, the term special needs in general is ableist, because there's something special about these needs. There's something extra about these needs. These are human needs. These are human necessities. Imagine if someone said that. Imagine if someone went up to you and said shit like, black rights are special needs. That would be fucking racist as fuck. That would be fucking disgusting. These aren't special needs. These are human needs. These are human necessities. Everyone deserves to live a decent life. And exactly what you said, Sister Zen, because when it comes to being neurodivergent, and when it comes to people who have mental disorders. Don't get me wrong, medication and treatment can obviously help, but the number one fucking thing that is the best treatment for any sort of mental disorder or being neurodivergent to better manage yourself is a change in an environment. It is to be with people that love you, that accept you, to be accommodated for your needs. The best thing for any neurodivergent person, for anyone in general, but especially neurodivergent people, is a change in environment. That is the number one best treatment, best medication, best anything when it comes to dealing with mental health. But we aren't given that. We aren't given that because we live because a society in general is basically just a massive environment. You know, we live in a socioeconomic system that doesn't treat us as human beings, but that treats us as commodities, as cogs in a machine that can be replaced and thrown around and changed with and just messed with in any way, shape, or form. We are treated as rats that can be replaced and killed off whenever they see fit, and whatever maximizes profits. If we are not exploitable in any way, we are seen as useless to them.
That's exactly what it is too. The system is looking at your adjacency to capital. And when you are disabled, whether that be mentally or physically, then your adjacency to capital has that much greater distance between you as a person and your capacity to produce profits for someone else under this fucking system. And if you are unable to produce large profits for the system, then they just look at you and go, you have no fucking value anymore. Fuck off and die.
Like you're some fucking you're some fucking glass figure. It's like, you know, I've used this example before. It's like, imagine to them, to the capitalists, you are like a glass figure, a glass figurine, right? And if you're exploitable, to them, you're seen as this perfect, symmetrical, whole piece. But if you're neurodivergent, or if you're physically disabled, or if you're disabled in any way, shape, or form, they see you as a cracked figurine. They see you as cracked, broken, disfigured. They see you as something that no longer looks pretty on display, that can no longer be used, and they throw you out and replace you. And yeah.
Speaking of, my physical disability is rearing its ugly head up. Sorry for the squirmy looks on my face. I've got nerve pain shooting down my leg. Yeah, sitting in one spot for too long. Yeah, it's something I can definitely relate to because I've been disabled since well, my early 20s. I slipped and fell at work and herniated the bottom 2 discs in my back. Had surgery, went through physical therapy and all that, and then got into a car wreck and thrown headfirst into a fucking tree and re-herniated the same 2 discs I'd already had surgically partially removed, and damaged my neck. So now I'm a big mess of nerve pain. So I'm very limited in the things that I can actually do for work. It's one of the things that revolutionized the fuck out of me, because prior to those spinal cord injuries, I was on the path to become a surgeon. And after, you know, sustaining those injuries and all of my doctors going, there's no fucking way you can't be on your feet for countless long hours performing surgery. And so I even, you know, tried to switch gears. I was still in school at the time at University of Michigan, and switched gears into like the lab sciences and whatnot, thinking I could actually still do some good in the lab, researching cancer and AIDS and things like that. And then found out after graduating that even as a scientist, they expect, I applied to hundreds of labs, and every one of them had on the job criteria ability to, you know, lift and carry 50 pounds or more of glass to stock the labs, because they didn't want to spend the extra money to hire a lab assistant to do that stuff. And I was like, the fuck am I supposed to do with that, with a weight limit of 10 to 15 pounds that I can lift, you know? And so, you know, being rejected from every lab that I fucking applied to and told that basically because I couldn't do physical grunt work that wasn't what I went to school for, that, you know, I no longer had that adjacency to capital, therefore, fuck me. That was one of the things that planted that first seed in my head of, wait, we're doing shit wrong here. If people are being denied access to simply the means to, for one, do some good in the world, and for two, to, you know, make a decent living, to be able to just live comfortably because of having a disability, that like, I mean, I was livid. Like, isn't this against the Americans with Disabilities Act that you're demanding that I be able to do physical labor when I went and earned degrees to build up my mind so I could use this to help the world and to be able to keep a roof over my head and food on my table, and to be told I can't even make use of that. It's one of those things that really opens your eyes when your adjacency to capital determines your fucking value across the board, and that gets removed from you. And we're seeing that happen on such a broader scale at this point, where, I mean, it's going across the board, regardless of, you know, what vicinity of work you are in, regardless of, you know, what other things that you are dealing with, whether it be mental health issues or physical health issues, that people are being dismissed as if it's like your life doesn't matter. And, you know, unless you're willing to work 60 to 80 hours a week and break your body for this company, you no longer have any value to us. It's despicable. It's unethical.
I have one thing to say on that. Like, a person can work for a company for 50 years. He dies on a Friday. By Monday morning, they already have a replacement for that person. And I'm sorry that you have to deal with that, Comrade Trish, because I also have 3 herniated discs from being a nurse back in the 90s, and just pivot transferring or putting people into showers or tubs and then taking them out kind of ruined my back. And then I also suffered in a car accident, whiplash. So I do have problems with my neck also, and I choose not to take any pills or anything like that. And I guess I'm kind of stubborn. Like I don't have to go. I'm not gonna go to the doctors unless I'm dying, or unless the ambulance takes me and like somebody called because I didn't call them. Then I'll probably go to the doctors. And that's probably kind of not the way to approach things, but that's just my personal belief. I prefer not to take medicines because a lot of things, all medicines can be, are pretty, a lot of the medicines that are now out there today are already indigenous remedies, or let's say homeopathic remedies.
Exactly.
And so and then our mind is so strong because we can think ourselves well, or we can think ourselves sick. So some people go on like, oh, my neck, my back, and my ass, and everything else. But think positive. Like, I mean, you know, and I don't know. Like we had mentioned earlier too, taking that time to get out in nature is one of the most homeopathic things you could do for yourself, for your family, or for anyone around you. It's and I like the way you said it. Like, not all of us can afford it because maybe not all of us live next to a river or a lake or the mountains. So we'd have to travel, and then by that time it takes a whole tank of gas. Like, I guess I'm not going. You know what I mean? No, but even if it's just little paths in your own communities where there's a little bit of wildlife, and I'm an avid bird watcher. And out here, I've seen eagles, and I've seen condors and hawks and egrets and all kinds of beautiful birds. Because I'm in Oregon right now. This is the first time I've passed through Oregon, but never actually stood a couple of weeks. and just the nature of things. Wow, like that's so healing to me, and I think it could be healing to all of us. But
It sounds beautiful.
let's not totally depend on the pharmaceutical big companies that the doctors own stocks in certain pharmaceuticals companies, and they'll push those, like, no, you need this little happy pill to go left, or this
Yep.
pill to go right. No, it's because they're getting paid to push those.
Exactly. They'll
When,
never
when
hit.
they
All
probably,
profit.
yeah, so when they probably know, like, that's not even the pill for them. Had I gave them the right pill that was going to actually work for the condition that they're trying to address, no, they don't have stock in that in that company, so they're not going to push that specific medication. But I think
Ooh,
through
could I?
through
Sorry.
food, through vitamins,
Mhm.
through being out in nature, I think, like I said a little while ago, we can think ourselves well and we can think ourselves sick. It's all about how we build our minds to think, and that's all.
You're right, though, that perspective does make a huge difference. Because the way that right there, neuroplasticity, it affects the neural pathways in your brain. And if you're thinking negatively about your health, you're going to induce more anxiety, and anxiety itself will have another negative impact on your physical health. Anxiety will raise your pain levels
Yep.
directly.
Yeah, not to cut you off, sister, because I like what you're saying, but just look at, I don't watch television, but when I do, what is the commercials? Most of the commercials are pharmaceutical commercials. Like,
Yep.
if you have a kink and you're giddy up, well, then take this little
Take this little
stepper
doodaddy.
upper. Like, oh, then, like, well, I didn't know I had a kink in my giddy up. But now that they mentioned it, let me go over there and get on this. Let me call my doctor and tell him. Go ahead, sister. I'm sorry to cut
Right?
you off.
Oh, it's all good. It just made me laugh remembering a commercial that I saw, I don't know, last week or so, and it was for eczema. And one of the risks of this eczema medication was death. And I'm like, you kidding me? I would rather have a red rash than fucking die from your pill. Get the fuck out of here. I'm not taking that. I will use shea butter. Thank you. Know? But I feel you on like the whole perspective there with the pharmaceutical industry, because with having the spinal cord injuries, I too worked in nursing, so I feel you on like having to lift people to transfer them in and out of their wheelchair and into showers and stuff, and it took its toll on my spine as well. That was a big factor. And my doctors had put me on nerve blockers for many years because it was the only thing we could find that would control the pain. Like, for a while, I was this close to becoming one of those dead statistics for opiates, because that's all they had, to treat chronic pain with. And I was like, okay, fuck this. Those aren't helping at this point. So they put me on nerve blockers for 16 years. I weaned myself off of them a little over a year ago, because the reason why those nerve blockers were blocking the pain in my arms and my legs was because they block all communication between neurons.
Yep.
And it was making it harder and harder for my memory to function properly, to even, recollect basic fucking things, finding myself dealing with aphasia and everything. And I was like, okay, enough. And it's been enough years that now, for the most part, I can control the pain with, stuff that I can get over the counter. I take Motrin for the inflammation. I take an enzyme supplement made from pineapple and papaya to help with the inflammation. That even calms the nerve pain. And I take fucking marijuana because that calms the nerve pain, the inflammation, the muscle spasms, the whole fucking works. I would rather smoke a flower than continue to damage my brain and my entire central nervous system with the pharmaceuticals they were giving me to control the nerve pain. At this point, because of the way marijuana helps to actually heal those neuron connections, I can think better. My body's functioning better in so many ways. I take things like magnesium and potassium to help with the muscle spasms. There are so many things that, via vitamins and proper diet, that we can actually address our health issues that are far better than the fucking pharmaceuticals. And even
Yep.
when it comes to dealing with anxiety, that magnesium that I take to calm my muscle spasms also calms anxiety. It's an essential fucking nutrient that your body needs for all of it to work on the cellular level. And you're better off taking chelated magnesium than fucking Xanax.
Literally. I just wanted to oh, sorry.
I was saying good point, and I've also been an advocate for the medical uses of marijuana. And yeah, it could get you a little high and a little loopy. Well, just go ahead go for the ride. Put your seatbelt on. But anyway, as far as but I've promoted that since the 90s. But I couldn't explain that to the judge at the time. But now you could go to like your little Piggly Wiggly store down the street and pick up a dime bag legally.
Crazy.
Where, I'm really grateful for that, whether it be medical or what do they call it, personal use or whatever, recreational. But it does have a lot of benefits, and marijuana is just one of the things that have a lot of benefits, like you were mentioning, and I mentioned earlier, through dietary supplements and so forth. There's so much to be gained by them, whatever the case may be. You want to lose weight, eating a grapefruit every day.
Yep.
The enzymes in a grapefruit will break down stored body fat like it's nobody's business. In 1 month, you will probably lose 10 to 15 pounds of, or if you think you're full of shit, well, then take a colon cleansing and clean all that stuff out. Get rid of all that excrement that's just been stored in there. And then you would definitely feel better about yourself.
How do oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Probiotics.
I was just
Yeah,
going to
girl.
I was gonna ask, how do you exactly get like a colon cleansing or stuff like that? Like, how do you exactly get it?
Well, there's different homeopathic forms of that. And I would probably go to my University of Google. Yeah, go to the University of Google or YouTube. But there's a lot of different things if you really wanted to research that. But because not a lot of people know that, but with the intestines, I think if they stretch out, I think it goes from like definitely from here to across the street, right?
Yeah.
But all the stuff that's stored in our intestines, all these things that are put into our bodies, whether we smoke cigarettes or whether we drink beer or just the foods we eat,
Coca-Cola,
or
Pepsi.
I don't even drink soda because I mean I'll drink a beer, but I won't drink soda. That's kind of crazy. But anyway, yeah, all those chemicals that we put in our body stay stored in our body. And unless we release them, well, then they tend to take an effect on us, and especially in the back, or in our backs, carries most of those toxins, and our feet carry a lot of those toxins. So I would say, even just going to people that massage you, or masseuse, should I say, to release some of those stored toxins in specific parts of the body that holds them, and then it gets out to the bloodstream, and then it can go out through your whatever, your sweat, your urine, or your feces or whatever. But if you don't have a clear track, and that when I was talking about the colon, or in our what do you call that, digestive tract?
That's it. Yep.
There's so much stuff stored there, and like I always recommend that to everyone.
Hell yeah. I was going to
please do.
sorry. I was just going to mention with what y'all were saying about medication, and how these fucking companies only give you what's profitable and what's good and what's and what's not going to solve the problem, but what's going to keep you coming to them more and more and more. I just want to say, when it comes to ADHD, right? ADHD is the most treatable disorder in psychiatry. Literally, there's no other mental disorder that has as many treatments and as many medication as ADHD. You want to know what the problem is? Most of the time, people don't get treated. Most of the time, there are people with ADHD that go unmedicated for their whole entire lives. And it's only during adulthood that a lot of them get medicated, or hell, a lot of them get misdiagnosed. But the specific part about it is that a lot of people with ADHD, when they are medicated, most of the time they don't even get the medication for them. Most of the time they don't even get the medication that actually connects the frontal lobe to the different parts of the brain, because that's what ADHD does to you, you know. But beyond the symptoms of it, ADHD in a metaphorical sense cuts your brain in half like a meat cleaver between the frontal lobe and the back part of the brain, between the parts of the brain that store information and the part of the brains that act on that information. And a lot of time, people with ADHD and with medication, oftentimes they get medication for autism, or for bipolar, or for bipolar disorder, or for other medications that really don't help them whatsoever. And I was just also going to mention, I recently, like 2 months ago, I got re-diagnosed for in vocational rehabilitation for technical college, right? And the doctor that I went to, right, the neurologist whom I went to, he diagnosed me, and he said that I actually did not have ADHD and that I had autism. And I asked him, okay, well, why do you think I have autism and not ADHD? And he was saying, well, yeah, you have problems with social cues, you have problems with memory, with keeping track of stuff, and all of the things he listed off were literally the same symptoms as ADHD. Like literally, they were literally the exact same fucking symptoms as ADHD. And when when he was diagnosing me, it felt more like he wanted to see if I qualified for vocational rehabilitation and less what I actually had. That's what I felt like it. So yeah, that's why I mentioned that.
If anything, it sounds like your diagnosis would be a combination of ADHD and autism,
That's what
not
I'm saying.
one or the other. And there is a lot of overlap there. I'm ADHD as fuck. And yeah, when it comes to the memory issues and impulsiveness, inability to pay attention, things like that, like I don't understand where they get off treating that with lab-made meth, for one.
Yeah.
You know, for me, marijuana helps the most with that and always has. I've smoked marijuana since I was 11 years old because I didn't realize it at the time, but I was self-medicating. It helped me focus more, you know. And I remember like family members talking shit to me about that, and I was like, excuse me, who's, you know, they thought that I was going to make myself stupid or something. And I was like, excuse me, this actually helps me focus, where I've got a 3.98 GPA and I'm on the dean's list and all this other shit, where, you know, I was able to start college at 15 years old. I don't think I would have been able to do that if I did not have marijuana to help me focus, because without that, my ADHD goes haywire of shiny stuff, squirrel, and I can't study. So that's something that I think goes back to a great misunderstanding of certain plant medicines that are more helpful than a lot of the shit they're making in a lab, you know. And here they are giving, you know, children with ADHD pills that are basically lab-made methamphetamine.
Yep.
And it's like,
what's that one medication for ADHD again? I forgot what it was. It starts with an A. It starts with an
Adderall.
A. Yeah, Adderall. Adderall, literally, if you crunched up Adderall and you fucking sniffed it, or if you melted it and injected it into your veins, it would literally have the same effects as meth. Literally, it would literally have the same fucking effects as meth.
what
Yep.
it metabolizes into, it's
Wow.
one of the main components of that medication, is a form of methamphetamine. And it's like, how the fuck are you gonna tell somebody you're hyperactive, take a stimulant?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that happens to a lot of people who are neurodivergent, this happened to me, was I was on medication, right, when I was first diagnosed, right? And the medication that they gave, that my neurologist prescribed for me was fucking horrible. Like and exactly like I was hyperactive, and it made me calm, but it made me like a lifeless husk. It made me just limp. I wasn't active. I wasn't moving. I was basically like a corpse, you know. And my mother saw this, and she was like, "Oh shit, this medication is bad for my child. Let me get them off of it," you know. And thankfully, props to her, she fucking did that. But instead of going, okay, maybe there are other forms of medication that can help my child to manage her ADHD, and make her life a little bit easier. Instead of thinking that way, she said all forms of medication, all forms of treatment are awful. I'm going to make my child not take any more medication for the rest of her life, for as long as I could have it. And I basically went my entire life without medication, basically. And that unfortunately happens to a lot of fucking people, where their parents just fucking don't give them medication for the rest of their fucking life because of one bad occurrence with one drug. And hell, maybe it wasn't the drug that was a problem, but the dosage of the drug, and so on and so forth.
Well, it should have come back to actually getting that lab work done that I was referring to earlier of analyzing your blood, analyzing your other, like if they had to, tap spinal fluid or whatever to test that too, of testing to see where your neurotransmitter levels are at, because the only way that certain things like SSRIs are going to help is, in that example, if you have an imbalance in your serotonin, in order for our brains to function properly, we need appropriate levels of serotonin, of dopamine, of oxytocin. And there's so many things where like these drugs are being prescribed either the wrong drug because it's addressing the wrong neurotransmitter, or the wrong drug, because of, this not even being a void that you need filled. Like in the case of oxytocin, do you know how much oxytocin it produces to have a hug, a long hug, not just a quick, but like 30 seconds or more long hug will induce oxytocin production in your brain. We are not meant to be solo beings. We are communally living beings. We are supposed to have that support network of loved ones, of our family, our friends, who we have deeper emotional connection with than what we're allowed under this fucked system that fucking always pushing for individualism. And it's like, I'm sorry, I can't hug myself into producing oxytocin.
Yep.
But if I hug someone who I have a deep connection with, whose presence calms my nervous system and I theirs, guess what? We're going to be producing hella oxytocin and our brains are going to function better.
Yep.
And
that sorry.
has a cascade effect there with serotonin and dopamine as well, because all of these things work together in conjunction to mediate our brains and therefore the rest of our bodies. We are energy living in a fucking meat suit. You got to be able to regulate the energy and regulate the neurotransmitters that then control every fucking thing else on behalf of that energy for every fucking thing else to fall into alignment.
Sister Zen, I actually wanted to and to add to what you said, what's one of the most innate things that we as human beings love to do? You know what it is? We love to pet things. We fucking love to pet things. We love petting things. We love patting things. We love caressing things. we ourselves like it when others pet us. I mean, obviously, with consent, and it depends, but we like it but in general, human beings love being petted or caressed or taken care of or hugged. And in fact, a recent neurological study was found that discovered that there is a specific neural pathway in our brain that specifically responds to when we are caressed or when we are hugged or when we are petted, and that right there, it just goes to show, why is there a specific neural pathway in our brains that specifically responds to that way? Because we are social creatures. We are intercommunal species. Human beings literally survived and thrived to be a communal species. That's how we evolved. That's how we managed to fucking survive for most of our early history, to live communally.
Yep.
And
and it shows not just in the way we interact with other human beings, of being able to have those close connections where, you can cuddle with each other and, actually be able to show another form of intimacy and connection there with each other, but also in how we interact with the rest of the world. There's studies that also show that people who own cats have lower levels of anxiety and lower risk of heart attack and other cardiac issues, because literally when a cat sits in your lap and you start petting them and they start purring, their purr alone, the sound and the vibration of that lowers our anxiety.
Yep. It's really beautiful.
It is. It once again goes back to the fact that we are simply energy riding around in a fucking meat suit. That when it comes to chemistry and physics, literally every particle of our being is at all times interacting with every other particle in existence, no matter the distance. If you get so far as like even studying quantum physics, you'll read about quantum entanglement, where there can be a particle on the other side of the fucking universe and it is being affected by us over here. We are energetic beings. When we exchange that energy with each other, with other living creatures, that is part of what feeds and fuels us. And this is one of the hugest, worst effects of the drive towards individualism we've ever seen in all of human history, because it's disconnected us from each other and from nature. And no fucking wonder we are not very functional when we are fucking disconnected completely from that which brings us the ability to thrive.
Preach, 100%, Sister Conrad, 100%. Honestly, unfortunately, in the state of Florida, you need to be, in the state of Florida, I think you need to be, give me 1 second, sorry.
I don't know if you meant to, but you muted
Sorry about
yourself.
No, yeah, I did. I was talking to someone, sorry. But unfortunately, in the state of Florida, I forgot what age it is, but I think you need to be 21 to have marijuana in the state of Florida, in order to take it. But man, I fucking wish I if I had a buddy or someone, I wish I could fucking take that shit, because I'm sure it would help me 10 times more than whatever fucking drug my neurologist would give me. It would most likely help me 10 times more.
Well, I'm not sure what all the legislation in Florida says. I would have to look it up again. I did help work the petition drive to get medical marijuana on the ballot so that it could be passed for medical usage years ago. But I don't recall all the language of the bills themselves. But if it operates like it does in other states, even if you are under the age of 21, your parents should still be able to access it and go to the dispensary on your behalf if you have a prescription. I know in some states it's 18 and in some it's 21, but that should be limited to the recreational access. Whereas if it's medical access, either you or your parents, since you're legally an adult, if you have a prescription for it, you should still be able to get a medical card. If you want, we can look that up later and see, because honestly, that would help.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I actually just searched it up. Cannabis in Florida is illegal for recreational use. Possession of up to 20 grams is a misdemeanor offense, punishable by up to a year in jail, a fine of up to $1,000, and a suspension of one's driver's license. Several cities and counties have enacted reforms to apply lesser penalties, however. So yeah, that's what it says.
That's sad that they still don't have recreational there, because it's been quite a few years that medical's been on the books there. You'd think that recreational would have passed by now, but it needs to, because it's not a fucking criminal act. For fuck's sake, even if you smoke before driving to the corner store to grab something to drink or something, what are you gonna do? Sit too long at a stop sign? If anything, I found that marijuana makes you hyper aware of like certain things, you know, to pay attention for in traffic. It's not something that, you know, it should be like, oh, you're going to do a year in jail for, you know, driving to the gas station after smoking a joint or something. But either way, like if you can talk with somebody about getting your medical marijuana card and actually get it prescribed, then I do believe that limitation would no longer apply, where at least even if you personally can't go to the dispensary because you're under 21, your parents should be able to go for you and be able to show, you know, like, here we are Gabby's caretakers, here is her prescription and her medical card, and here's our names listed on the back as her caretakers or caregivers, you know, whatever, so that they can get your medication for you. I mean, I know patients who are in their teens whose entire lives have been turned around for the better because their parents were able to access medical marijuana for them. And one of them is now an activist, you know?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say to that, my parents despise marijuana. Like, in general, they fucking think if I take marijuana, I'm gonna become a fucking serial killer the next day. Or some shit, like they have such a disdain for marijuana. Like whenever they hear someone bad on the news, like whenever they hear like a homicide or a murder or whatever, they think, oh, that person was probably on drugs, or they were probably on fucking marijuana or some shit like that.
Sorry, did they watch Reefer Madness and think that it was truth or something and not just propaganda bullshit?
I don't know, but in general, they just think if you take marijuana, you must be some fucking quote unquote insane, crazy maniac who's just gonna become a serial killer the next day. They're
Wow.
they're fossils. They've been like this for ever since they were 18 or so. So yeah.
That's extra. No, just it shows their lack of understanding about, you know, actual mental health issues that might lead one to have a proclivity for violence. Like if somebody
Exactly.
and it takes a combination of those psychological factors and environmental factors too, because there's a lot of people out there who are sociopaths, for example, who are not violent, but the ones who we've seen become violent and become serial killers is because of so much violence being done to them that triggered the fuck out of them. So like it takes a combination of factors, but never has anybody gone on a killing spree from smoking marijuana. If anything, it calms your nerves where you're like, okay, I might want to kill somebody, but I'm not gonna, you know. And like
also, I just searched
marijuana is the opposite effect of that.
Exactly. Also, I just searched it up. Marijuana is only legal in the state of Florida when a person has obtained a medical marijuana use authorization as outlined in Chapter 381 of the Florida statutes. This law includes regulations for a user registry, caregiver possession, and treatment of centers for purchasing consumable marijuana. So yeah.
So yeah, you'd have to get your card.
Am I old enough though? Let me see. How old do I have to be to get a? I don't know how to spell marijuana, so weed card.
Specify in Florida, because otherwise it'll bring you back a jumblefuck of results from all over the planet.
Yep. Oh, 18 years old. Damn. To become a medical marijuana patient in Florida, you must be 18 years of age or older, be a permanent or seasonal Florida resident, be diagnosed with a qualifying health condition by a qualified physician.
There you
So
go.
that's what I need.
Yep, it'd definitely be a better route than getting caught up in, you know, a pharmaceutical drug that may or may not even be addressing, you know, everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult because it's hard to find places that are actually willing to take that step to test your neurotransmitter levels and see what needs to be done to address them.
Where do they even go for that
Oftentimes they
shit?
look at the things that you're discussing in therapy and your own personal description of your symptoms, which is incredibly fucking helpful. I will say that there's a lot of you know, shrinks that are doing better with that, of actually acknowledging that the person in that meat suit fucking does have a great capacity to be able to communicate with you what's going on
And knows their own
with
shit.
them. However, it does take it being coupled with the physical science there of, you know, actually testing to see if you need one of those medications that they can offer for, you know, serotonin reuptake, for example, you know. But I've found that regardless of those things, everybody who I've talked about this with throughout my life, who has certain, you know, mental health issues that they don't want to take pharmaceuticals for, sees a benefit from marijuana, whether it be smoking, vaping, medibles, topicals, you know, for if you have physical pain, but you know, all the others apply as far as like mental pain, emotional pain, that it is greatly beneficial. There's a reason why we have a cannabinoid system in our bodies, in our central nervous system, where we have the receptors for cannabinoids to bond with, and that's because it's supposed to be a part of our diet in every way, shape, and form. We are supposed to be eating it. We are supposed to be smoking, because it's got a huge impact on how our bodies work. And every bit of what I've read from the scientific studies on it is nothing but beneficial attributes to adding this plant to what you consume daily, whether it be emotional regulation, whether it be anxiety, whether it be pain in your body, whether it be cancer, things like that. Beneficial in every fucking way, you know? That's why, like, we literally just need to decriminalize across the board, because we would see a tremendous benefit societally with that. There's still so many states that don't even have medical access, and it's fucking sad.
Indeed.
And not only is the problem with it feeding the prison system, because in those states, or even in ones like yours, where it's like, okay, we'll make this legal for medical, but not for recreational.
Yeah.
They use that as an excuse to be able to, you know, search shit without a warrant, to be able to arrest you and imprison you and turn you into nothing but a fucking statistic that they're making profits off of for having possessed a flower.
Yep.
Fuck.
You know,
excuse me, comrades. I'm gonna have to go right now. I didn't want to. I was trying to be patient, but I didn't want to cut you all off.
No, it's fine.
You made a good point there, Sister Zen, because that was the whole when they when they criminalized drugs back in, and I don't know exactly what year it was specifically had an impact on who they incarcerated. And at that time, this was like after slavery, that they would still be able to put prisoners to work, whether we call them the chain gangs or whatnot like that. So it was something I was deep in researching, dabbing into yesterday, and it's something I've heard about in the past. But they've kind of set that whole system, and that system carries to this day. Most people are incarcerated right now because of drugs, and that goes back to what we were talking about. Now, finding the deep root of what the problem is, and what the mental problem is, or like you were saying, the what do you, or the underlying cause, or the what you call it, chemical imbalances. A lot of it has to deal with chemical imbalances. You hit the nail on the head when you said that. But anyway, excuse me, but I'm gonna have to go. But it was it's always nice, and it's always a pleasure to be here with you all. And stay strong, comrades, and all power to the people.
All
All
power
power,
to the people.
comrade. And it's all good. We're
all
coming up
power.
on 2 hours now, and
Yep.
so we should probably start wrapping this up soon. But this has been a really good discussion.
Very amazing.
It's
Most
Absolutely.
definitely. All right.
Yeah.
We'll live until tomorrow, and then if somebody can screenshot me for the Wretched of the Earth on what page we left off, because the one that we're have here doesn't correlate to the pages to where you guys were reading from. So if by some chance
Here,
Uh,
I'll give you the
so-
page. I will give you the page right now. Actually, I have the physical
believe we
book.
were
We are on
Yep.
page. Let me check right
190
now.
or 120.
Yep,
We
120.
stopped at 119. So yeah, page 120 in the paperback.
and
Yeah,
I don't
that's
have the
what you got.
paperback. I guess that's where
got
it's not
the-
collating.
Oh,
So if
yeah,
you guys
'cause
can
it's
send me a
kinda different.
screenshot of what the top of 120 looks like, and then I can pre-check it so I can be on time and prepared.
Yep.
Sounds like
I
a
will.
plan.
I will send you the. I will send you. I'll send you the link, comrade. Comrade Joe. I'll send you the link for it.
Okay, and
Yeah.
with that being said, you all have a wonderful afternoon. Stay
You too.
strong, stay lifted, and go for a walk in nature.
Yep.
right.
All
And
power
take-
to the
yeah.
people.
And take yourself a
All
little
power,
spliff
Tom.
while you're at it.
Yep.
All right.
Get it.
All right, bye.
All.
All
Bye,
right,
y'all.
fine.
All
All
power.
right.
See y'all tomorrow.
See ya.
Definitely see you.
All power.
Okay.